Welcome back to 5 Acres Honey Farm. I often get a question about how to keep your hives safe. And this question generally pops up when I'm doing an event. So if I am doing kind of like a beekeeping 101 thing or selling honey, and other beekeepers might be coming by just to say hi. And I also get this question when there are individuals who want to keep hives on their property and they're not beekeepers themselves. So some of my first questions, and so this question is, as the title of the video suggests, how to protect your hives from aerial sprays and chemical sprays. And when I do get approached by individuals who want hives on their property, one of my first questions to them is, if they have neighboring farms around and what those crops are. So in North Carolina, agriculture is the #1 industry in the state. So there are lots of different crops that are grown across the state. Our southern history and the heritage, of course, you see a lot of cotton fields in the south, and cotton is one of the most pesticide-laden crops around. So being cognizant about what is being grown, where, the distance from the apiary, etc., it's all super important. The other thing to consider then, because there are varietals of honey like cotton honey, so there are ways for bees to pollinate cotton in a safe way. So it would be a great idea, of course, one, to communicate with any of the farmers who own the land or who are operating crops on the land to learn about their practices and let them know that you're going to keep bees in the area. That's, of course, can be cumbersome, but it's really critical, because if they are going to be doing some applications, they can time it and make sure that it's not going to be when the bees are foraging. Of course, with the proper use of most pesticide applications, those practices are kind of already in place. It would just mainly be if those individuals are going to follow the regulations and the guidelines for those applications. So with that aside, with having to manually contact, reach out, find the details of the landowner, the other thing that you can do, which is completely free, no cost, is to register your apiary on driftwatch.org. This is a site that's managed by FieldWatch. I'm not really sure how the two organizations kind of intersect a bit, but I know that whenever I'm mentioning it to folks, I tell them to go to Driftwatch. They could also Google FieldWatch, and you're going to find the same resource. So you'll make an account there. You register the location of your apiary. You'll state how many hives you maintain there. And the idea here is that individuals within a certain radius of you who are about to apply a chemical pesticide are supposed to check there and see, is there anyone nearby that I need to notify? Their practice then would be you would receive an alert through the site, and I forget right now, I'll check and I'll add in the comments. It's generally 24 hours notice, I believe. It might be 48 hours or 72 hours notice. You have a bit of a heads up in advance of that application. So say it's Monday and a farm is planning to apply their pesticides on Wednesday. They might go on there and enter that information, so you'll get an alert. And so you'll have some window of time to decide what you want to do with your hives. Do you want to close them and move them indoors if it's really, really close to your apiary, or do you just want to close them for the day, close them for 2 days, give them some food so that they have some resources while they're closed up? So you can make those decisions yourself, and you have a little bit of leeway, and it can help prevent the loss of your colonies or your whole bee yard. Not everyone uses the service, but it's a great kind of iron to have in the fire, because it is free, and why not hear about that kind of application happening near you that you would otherwise not hear about. The other service, which is specific to North Carolina, but I encourage you to check with your own state, municipality, province, depending on where you're located, to learn if you have a body, kind of like a group, I would say. Like I was gonna say, like a like a kind of an agricultural entity that oversees similar work. But the North Carolina Department of Agriculture has a plant division, and part of that area, every year they have an apiary registration opportunity. It's $10, fairly nominal fee considering how much it costs to replace a colony, and how do you put a price tag on everything that the colony produces that you could potentially lose early in the season to a pesticide application. So you can submit your apiary registration right now. As of this filming, it remains to be a paper process. It's kind of really hard to believe in this day and age that there isn't an online form, an online payment portal. I know there are tech limitations across many organizations, but you have to print out a form, put a stamp on an envelope, and mail in a check to pay your $10 fee. There doesn't seem to be any other way at this opportunity, at this point, to register your apiary. So generally every year I register my apiary, and last year I didn't get around to it. I can't remember if the year before I did, but general practice is I do it every year. I was looking last month for the form. I couldn't find a 2023 one, but I just checked today and the 2023 form is posted. I'm linking it below, and I'm also linking a URL to the general plant division. So if you happen to be watching this video beyond 2023, you can take a look around and see where the current form is posted. So I will mail that in, and that's for the entire state of North Carolina. So my intent this year is to register both my apiary here in Pittsboro, North Carolina, and my other apiary out in the western North Carolina near Fontana Lake. So that way both of them will be registered. I am surrounded much more in this Chatham County area by more farmland, more commercial farmland at least, than what I see out in the western part of the state where my other colonies are. And the nice thing there is that, like, on the form, you can list, if you know of certain farms within a certain radius of your apiary, you can list their names, and that way the Department of Agriculture will have an opportunity to notify them about the hives that are present there and give them that information. So there are a lot of regulations that go into pesticide applications. Getting certified in the pesticide applications is something that I'd like to do at some point. I just don't have the capacity to do it right now, but these are just some basic ways of protecting your colonies from chemical sprays. Another kind of like bonus piece, I guess, that I'll leave with you as like another challenge that I hear beekeepers run into is having chemical sprays by utility companies near their colonies. So it's usually a good idea to contact your utility company and let them know that you maintain bees there, and that if they are going to do some type of application, that they need to contact you in a certain amount of time. I've only heard really negative things about those practices, even with beekeepers notifying their utility companies. I've heard of continued challenges with that, and failure or lack of notification of chemical inputs. So your experience may be different, may vary. I personally haven't had firsthand experience with that, but I just wanted to throw it out there that would be another avenue if you keep your colonies really close to utility lines or an easement where utility companies are going to be coming through or maintaining the landscape in a way that might be detrimental to your colonies. So beyond that, the few things that you need to consider are, really giving a good kind of like a bird's eye view, or a bee's eye view of what's around your apiary in like a 1 to 5 mile radius. I suggest 5 miles, although like most places suggest 1 to 3 miles because of, thinking of the drift for the chemicals, but just be aware of what types of commercial crop production are happening within a fairly close radius of your apiary, and contact any landowners that you're concerned about, or if you notice as you're driving around you see some crops that you think might be produced with chemical input, that you can contact them just to kind of keep in touch about how you can manage your hives in the best way, without interrupting their service, without interrupting really yours too much too. And then the other is going on Drift Watch and registering your apiary. And the other, if you're in North Carolina, is registering your apiary with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. And if you're not in North Carolina, looking to see what your state agriculture, plant division, or similar entity may have available in a similar service. Of course, checking with your regional beekeeping club and association is another great step you could take. And these are just really fairly low effort, low energy ways of making sure that your colonies aren't going to get exposure to chemicals that could completely kill them out. The last thing I'll mention, which I planning to do a separate video on because I think it's pretty fascinating, is that you could also, beyond chemicals, but thinking about what plants are in your area and what plants you're introducing to your property, because certain plants are toxic to honeybees. So I'm going to be doing a separate video about some common plants that that folks may not realize are are toxic to honeybee colonies. The number one plant I always point out, and that's what I'll leave you with, is Carolina jasmine. So that is a plant native to the southeast, and of course honeybees are not native to North America. They were brought over here from Europe when the United States was being settled, the colonies. And Carolina jasmine may be present natively and naturally near your apiary, but that can kill out a honeybee colony. But it's also a plant that I see pretty much at every popular plant nursery, and there's never any warning with it. So I always point out to the staff that I would really appreciate if they put a warning with it that it is fatal to honeybee colonies. So I generally get dirty looks and people ignore me. So I feel like then the best other thing that I could do is just to educate consumers and let you know, so that you could also advocate for some proper labeling on plants that people may be unintentionally adding to their property, thinking they're helping pollinators when they're actually causing some harm. So beyond that, thank you so much for watching and listening in. And if you have some efforts that you do to help protect your colonies from chemical sprays, please let me know. I'd love to share them. I could do a follow-up video about them too, and would love to hear about them. So we'll talk to you soon.